Okay guys, so one of the first things that I have when starting watercolor is we've watched the movie, we filled out this, and we have turned it in for test grade. And what we're going to do after that is we're just going to kind of play around, and we're going to test out the process and see what we've learned. One of the things that we know is we should have 2 cups of water, one for dirty water, one for clean water. Put those over here. And then the next thing you need, and my rules are very, very strict and important. These trays are for watercolor and only watercolor. So if you've been using them for painting with acrylic or tempera, gouache, or anything like that, you've been doing it wrong. We've got to get out of bad habits. This is actually for watercolor. And one of the things about watercolor is that in this class, we use tubes of paint, which you can find in the classroom. And we actually have very specific watercolor brushes. Again, if you have been using any paintbrush with clear handles, you've been doing it wrong. These are specifically for watercolor. We've purchased them just for watercolor. They're specifically for that. They have different sizes. They even have their own drawer. So you need to make sure that you are using the appropriate tools and the appropriate items in order to actually even start watercoloring. Now, before we actually get to the process and we start painting, I just really want to talk to you about the do's and the don'ts in this class. At the end of each day, the only thing that you should be washing at the sink is actually your paint brushes and your jars. And the reason why is because watercolor never goes bad. So the paint trays will eventually be filled with watercolor from various people. And even if it dries out, it doesn't matter. Watercolor is revived, it is created, it is used by water. So even when we take our watercolor now, we open up the tube, it's in a paint form, but it is water soluble. So I want you to notice, especially compared to using acrylic or gouache or tempera or anything else that we use in class, one of the things that is very, very noticeable is the smallest amount of paint that we use. This watercolor, especially with this color red and black and your darker colors, your yellows, you may wind up using a little bit more. But other than that, when you're dealing with red or black or green or even some blues and purples, the problem is that you use so little. Now again, you're adding water and you're pulling from that area. And later on in the next video, I'll actually show you what to physically do with that. But you are, in fact, using those items. Now, I could leave this for a week. I could leave it for a year. And this could dry out, and it could look like bits of dried paint everywhere all over this palette. And one of the reasons why I'm so specific about these palettes in particular is the fact being that it's watercolor paint. And we'll use watercolor paint. This could dry. I could let this sit for years, and then I could come back and I simply add water to it, and it's perfectly fine again. These tubes of paint, even if you did watercolor every single day of your life, these tubes of paint should last you for well over a year. These little bitty tubes of paint, if you painted 3 paintings every single day with these little tubes of paint, they should last a very, very long time. Simply because of that. Now, it would vary on the project and et cetera, but for the sake of our class and our projects, this is literally the max amount of paint that you would need. And you'd really want this small little texture, and just for the sake of you guys understanding, we'll add it to the paper. See that little wash that we got going on there? And even if we wanted a darker, stronger color, I still barely used any paint at all. So first of all, you got to stop thinking of it as painting. Because although we are watercolor painting, we're not actually painting the way that you would think that we are actually painting. This is completely opposite and completely reverse of acrylic painting. So we basically have to start completely from scratch. The one thing that you need to understand, in my classroom in particular, is that after today, I'm probably going to put away these tubes of paint. You're all going to test out your paint today. After maybe tomorrow, depending on what we do, you're going to do a tester, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when we actually finally start our project, I'm going to wind up putting away the tubes of paint. Because one of the biggest problems that we have is when we have access to paint, you think it's easier to just grab a tray and start over. But these trays won't be cleaned until the end of the process. And that means the end of a month. So these trays will all be sitting on the counter, and you'll every single day go by and collect the tray that has the amount of colors and the colors that you specifically need. And remember, you can use the paint in here, you can use the paint in all these little sections right here. We'll have color everywhere. So you'll have this whole body and this whole built up area already of the paint you want. You paint one section at a time, and you really shouldn't be mixing colors, but if you do mix colors, say you want a more vibrant orangey color, then you'll just have to locate your tray every day or simply blend those colors or complete that project before the bell rings, which is the most accurate way of doing this project. Remember, at the end of each class, all you should be doing is washing your paintbrushes. See, look, I've got some acrylic paint on here that people have been using incorrectly. You should be washing out your jars of water. Even though one's clean, you should still be washing them out and putting them in the drain. The tubes of paint go back where they belong, and the tray does not get cleaned out but gets put on the counter so that other classes can actually use them. If I catch you washing off the paint or getting paint trays every single day, you will deduct your points from your project. The project and the concept of most of this grade is actually seeing if you preserve watercolor paint like you should be. All right, well, that is the most basic foundation. The next video I will be showing you how to apply it, even though we've already kind of seen a video. I kind of want to go through how to apply it and to basically use your paint palette. All right.